There often comes a time in our lives where we have to make a conscious choice to continue with the absurdity of the mundane or abandon everything and start anew. Alcohol had never been a problematic issue for me, but on this night, staring down the bottom of an empty Guinness glass, a looming threat emerged in my subconscious. And whether I was prepared to deal with it or not, in that moment, an existential dread fell on me. My brain went to work dissecting the course in which my life was going. Then, almost like a get up and go moment, deep within the recess of my own thoughts, I noticed an alarming routine had been brewing. I soon realized that I was losing control of what life I thought I had through drinking. Drinking was slowly creeping into what was becoming a noticeable problem for me. I had begun to prioritize my escape from facing the things in my life that were truly important to me with alcohol. It was easier to get drunk than it was to admit to myself that I was unhappy with the way my life was going, and that I'll do it tomorrow attitude was never going to manifest into anything more than those 4 words. It was at that very moment I was fully conscious of my own mortality. I was faced with 2 choices that night: sacrifice a vice that was actively clouding all my judgments, or have another pint. The choice had never been clearer, and that evening, and so on for the next 2.5 years, I roamed alcohol-free, to the dismay of a select few who had been benefiting from my enabling behavior. Following my enlightenment, I moved to the next stage of my rehabilitation. Filmmaking had long been a passion of mine, and over the course of the decade, it slowly faded into obscurity. It was only when I discovered vlogging that the idea crept back. The excitement I got watching some really creative and talented travel filmmakers motivated me to entertain filmmaking once more. Almost a decade out of film school with no direction, vlogging and YouTube had rekindled that flame. The idea of creating content that was uniquely mine led me to purchase a camera, new laptop, and a plane ticket to New York. Like most things in life that often appear easy when shown, vlogging was no exception. This was a lesson I would learn the hard way. Upon arriving to New York on one of the coldest days of the year, I quickly realized I am in no way, shape, or form a vlogger. I chickened out. I had no game plan. I managed to record a couple of things, and occasionally when no one was looking, put the camera in my face. But fear got the best of me. There is an inherent problem everyone faces after seeing a business or an idea take off. We want the same for ourselves, but we forget to do our own due diligence. I had succumbed to this very issue. I had not given myself the proper framework to be successful in this endeavor, and with no mentorship or lack of research into what this task would entail, I was left to my own thoughts and feelings of inadequacy. A new level of respect blossomed from my vlogging counterparts. My current struggles were reaffirmed when I got back into my own city. Vlogging at home, where I thought would be much more easier, had played out exact same as it did in New York. But what was the alternative? It is always now. 3 years of inconsistent and inactive posting on this channel would eventually give birth to better quality videos. Yet I was faced with a new dilemma. I had fallen under the fallacy that because the videos had gotten better, the views and the likes had to be pouring in anytime soon. I had prioritized the wrong things for so many years trying to grow this channel that I gave more importance to the accolades. No consistent work had been done, and yet I was searching for validation through likes and subs. A simple goal, to relearn a craft I love and upload footage daily, had now been mutilated into something else. Micro-ambitions always eludes the best of us. The short-term pursuit of manageable goals is overlooked as failures if the prize isn't immediate. We often prize ourselves above our perceived value, which ultimately leads us to alienate the things that are essential to us. I was sure my next trip would yield better results for vlogging and channel content. I managed to find friends headed in my general direction and figured vlogging with them would alleviate the stress and fear of doing it by myself. It's funny, traveling never fails to shed some insight into your own personal life. The first stop was Hong Kong, which taught me that it didn't matter how many people I was with, vlogging would still be a confounding issue for me. It also taught me that despite having spent a fortune on new gear, I still have not done the work needed to understand how to manipulate any of it to my will. A classic mistake that finally hit home as a prevailing issue for me when I purchased new gear. While I was able to get some footage from Hong Kong, I knew the next stop, being Japan, had to provide better results. I was determined to make the most of this trip. I learned from my mistakes in Hong Kong and quickly put efforts into minimizing any problems that may occur so I could maximize on the time and shooting in Japan. The content I created from this trip was mediocre at best, but what I learned while putting the footage together taught me who I am as a filmmaker and how I view my art. And while the footage was an issue, it paled in comparison to the burden that I inflicted on myself with the amount of gear I traveled with. Suffice to say, I knew right away, even in Hong Kong, should I ever travel again, less was the key word. A year later, I was back in Asia, and with the lessons from my previous journey, I traveled slightly lesser and had a better understanding of my own gear. But I came up short again. Still too much stuff. So much that it bogged me down and was almost the cause of a missed flight home. So when I hit 30, I took a 3-month trip to Japan, Shanghai, and Hong Kong for 3 months. This was it. This revolutionized everything about the way I was about to view myself, the world, and my art. And even though I had packed even lighter this time, I knew halfway into my trip I could have gone a lot lighter. There had been an emerging trend coming from my travels. Traveling had finally hit its mark on its head. I knew coming home focus had to be given to a better way of living. We make decisions weekly that actively impacts our lives negatively. I am no stranger to this phenomenon, but it is not just weekly. This is a prevailing problem that we all face through our lives. From big to small decisions, we actively relinquish our sovereignty to absurd choices that when reflected upon, we can't help but smile in disgust. This type of masochist behavior that impedes progress and growth is only examined when we are truly paying attention. We must admit to ourselves that some of the choices we make aren't a reflection of who we are, but how we want others to perceive us. We also must weigh out the non-essentials that hinder our growth unless we are doomed to always be someone else's doormat. Trying to affect change later in life is a struggle. Research shows that new habits are harder to form past the age of 25, which means that to effectively develop new habits, we all need discipline. Discipline in blocking out the meaningless things that capture our attention. The trick is being conscious of the habitual bad habits when they arise in your day-to-day life and finding ways to mitigate them. Clearly, everyone is different, and the negative habits we all carry with us like bad baggage will weigh us down and slow how we move through life. In my case, it was alcohol, and also constantly letting people dictate my time. I also never completed anything because I let myself believe that the work was never good enough. Understanding what is driving us off the course of our lives is the first step. While Japan brought me Ikigai, the path to a purpose-filled life, my travels brought me to minimalism. Less is more. And from there, productivity brought me to essentialism, the disciplined pursuit of less but better. For powerful and consistent results, we need to be aware of how to keep learning and growing so we can impact change in our lives and hopefully others.